Hello, my name is Wade Nomura, and this is Rotary Serving Our Community. Today I'm going to be taking you on one of the trips that I had recently where I went to South America to actually evaluate a couple of projects down there. Both of these projects were done in conjunction with the Rotary Foundation, and my role was that of a Rotary Foundation Cadre. Now, a Cadre is a technical advisor that takes a look at different projects around the world, and one of the things that the Cadre does is to make sure that the projects are going effectively, efficiently, and that the money that you participate in by funding these grants is used 100% the correct way. This project I'm going to take you to is in Guayaquil, Ecuador, and this was funded actually by Rotary clubs in the San Francisco area. My job on this one was to evaluate a septic system that was installed in the year 2014, completed in the year 2015. So why are you wondering, would they send me down to actually take a look at a project that was already implemented and completed? Well, the Rotary Foundation right now is taking a look at the sustainability content of each of these grants and to see if in fact the sustainability of these projects that were done 4 or 5 years ago actually still are sustainable to this day. And so that's why they sent me down. Now, to be honest with you, I do water and sanitation as one of my areas of focus. However, the sanitation part is something that was a little bit of a stretch for me. And in order for me to give it a comprehensive evaluation, I actually recruited a friend of mine, which I will plug. His name is Craig Murray. He is the director of the sanitation department in Carpinteria, also a Rotarian in the Rotary Club of Carpinteria. So one of the things that we as cadres do is actually recruit people that would be able to help us out, actually bring in the experts if we don't have the expertise ourselves. And so what was unique about this project also was the fact that it was done in a school. The school was actually privately owned by a company, an organization, and I will be showing you that shortly. But this organization actually had a system put in place previously, and what happened was the system started to fail, and because of that, the Rotary Club in that area got a little interested in that and decided to help them out with that. And so that's where the actual funding and the interest of the project occurred itself. Now I'm going to jump in real quick into the project because one of the advantages I have as a Rotary Foundation Cadre is to go to these sites, but I want you as a viewer to actually be able to get a feel and see what is going on with the money you are contributing to the Rotary Foundation. So the first picture I have here is a picture of the school itself. The people that you see there are the leaders of the school, and the people that are in the school actually are funded by an organization that is based out of Switzerland. The lady that you see on the left, she is one of the organizers, leaders, and directors of the school itself. She is from Switzerland. And as you could see, I was a little bit surprised. I was speaking English to her, and she was giving me kind of a puzzled look on her face until I started speaking Spanish. Found out later that Spanish was our common language because I don't speak Swiss, and she didn't speak English. So we went through this program. The ones that you see there are mothers, parents that were involved with the school itself, organizing it, administrators, and the gentleman on the right is the gentleman that's in charge of all of maintenance for the school. Now the school is fairly large. It has about 700 students there on a daily basis. And so the school functions 5 days a week and pretty much goes year-round. The next picture you'll see is one of the meetings that we do. As a cadre, one of the assignments that we have or requirements we have is to actually delve into the details. Find out if in fact the projects are effective, they're sustainable, if there's an understanding with the Rotarians and with the community involved with the project itself. Oftentimes we will find shortfalls in ways that we could improve projects itself by listening to what the people have to say. The beneficiaries are the ones that usually tell us the most about what is needed, what hasn't been needed, what has been addressed, how important the project was to them, and how it has changed their life. And this, as a cadre, is what we need to evaluate and take a look at and monitor. You'll notice also that they put a little bit of a food spread out for us. It's unique, but in Rotary, fortunately, because we are a fellowship organization, we will always get food and drink on site. So it was very nice of them. As you can see in the background, this school is a beautiful school. It's fairly new, and they did an excellent job of the construction of this school. As a cadre, again, we take a look at and evaluate, question people one by one individually. The one I'm talking to right now happens to be the director, and I'm asking her what she saw in the project, how she felt the project was important to the school itself, and why she felt that the project itself would be sustainable in the long run for that school. And so we wanted to make sure that she was voiced. She had an opinion of that one. She was very supportive, and she thanked Rotary tremendously for the changes that it had made in that community and in that area. One other point that was important that I kind of noticed was the fact that there was an educational component also of health and water. And this educational component of water and sanitation has to do with the health of the organization and the community itself. So we talk about the standard general hygiene of washing before you eat, making sure that your food is clean, drinking water that you drink or consume is actually something that is safe, because this area also had water that was fairly contaminated. You could not drink water from the tap because it actually did have some organic matter in it, so it was questionable. That's why the drinking water that they used at the school was all purchased, bought, and came in containers. The next picture we have is actually just a little sidebar. What I did was I took a picture of the school itself, and the school picture that you see there is a Rotary sign, and this Rotary logo actually is right there by the kitchen. It is the Rotary Club of La Puntilla, which is actually the club that was sponsoring the event there. They were working in conjunction with the international partners. But the logo that shows is right in front of the kitchen. It's a commercial kitchen, beautifully done, that was funded by another project grant for the school specific. Now the school itself is a religious school, and one of the areas that I have to take a look at, if it is a school or an organization that has religious affiliation, I have to walk in and make sure that religion, because Rotary does not permit the promotion of religions, so we had to make sure that religion was not part of the educational component of this, nor did it show that the support of the school and the projects itself were supported by both the church and by Rotary. As you can see, that logo was 100% Rotary. The next picture I have here shows the before picture. This was a picture of the actual septic system prior to 2014. And as you can see, it's in pretty bad shape. What was kind of unique, we don't see a lot of these septic systems actually installed in the developing world. Most of the time, they're basically latrine-based. However, this one here had to support the school, and because of the 700 students there was a need to actually create this septic system itself. Now, what happened in 2012, 2011, they noticed that the tanks were actually fracturing out because of overuse, time, all of the above, and that the contaminants are actually bleeding into the water system, contaminating the groundwater. And so that was the reason why it was decided that we'd come in with a new system. The next system, as you'll see put in place, is a brand new one. This was done in 2014, 2015. Now, I had not seen pictures of this prior to myself leaving from the United States to fly into Ecuador. And I was actually very surprised to see the sophistication of this design. This design is pretty much a standard for most of the developed countries around the world. And because of that, I was really fascinated in how this technology was brought about to an area that was about 100 miles or 2.5 hours away from the closest city, which is Guayaquil in Ecuador. So to see how it was done, and then another thing I did not have were the plans. They failed to send me the plans for the project itself, so I did not have blueprints of the project itself, but once I got there, I was able to acquire the blueprints, see the technologies of that, again, report back to Craig Murray here stateside in Carpinteria, and affirm and confirm that the system actually was functioning as it stated it was, which it was. They did a beautiful job with that one. The next picture is another side view. This shows the inlet port of the tank itself, and in this inlet port, you will see that it goes into the tanks. There's a separator there that separates out the solid mass from the liquid masses, which assists in making sure that this system stays a lot more easy to maintain, takes a lot less time. Now, the maintenance of this tank is twice every week. So twice a week, this thing is actually monitored, maintained, cleaned out to make sure that everything is functioning appropriately. Now, one of the other interesting things about this septic system is the fact that it is actually organic. in that the materials in the tank itself are part of the organic cycle, so the breakdown occurs with microbes, and that makes it, I would say, a little bit more effective, a little more efficient. One of the drawbacks of having that type of system in place is that during the rainy seasons, now we are in Ecuador, right by the equator, there's a rainy season, and that could overtax the system itself, bringing in way too much moisture, water into the system, so that had to be monitored and controlled also. I asked them about that, and they seem to be pretty well supported and stable with that problem. One of the areas of that also was the fact that with the rainwater coming in, usually seasonal, they had not had a sufficient amount of water in probably about 2 or 3 years. So they were kind of in a drought, just like we are here in California. So that probably also aided in making sure that the maintenance of this tank was pretty much up to speed. The next picture we have shows the water that was actually exiting out of the system. As you can see, it's treated pretty close. The safety of that water is close enough to where it could be put into the groundwater. So the exhaust of that you see right there actually exhausts into a percolating system. So that perks into a percolating pond, and that percolating pond then goes down towards the groundwater, with the water being monitored, measured on a daily basis to make sure that that water is safe once it is exhausted into the percolation pond. The next picture is a picture showing us on the outside of the control area. As you can see, again, very sophisticated, and taking a look at the condition of this, realizing that that was built in 2014-15. It is in immaculate shape. I was very impressed with the amount of maintenance that this gentleman here had done. Now, the two people, I want to introduce them because I'm hoping that they're going to be able to catch this show in Ecuador also. The gentleman to the left is Octavio Perrin, who is a Rotarian for a number of years. He was my guide, and on the extreme right side is Raul Barcia, and those two gentlemen are both Rotarians. The rest of the people there are staffers from the school itself. I spent a lot of time talking with both of the Rotarians even before I went down. We were exchanging emails, and what was interesting about that is when I showed up there, they were surprised that I spoke Spanish. I was kind of lucky at that point in time. All of the correspondence before that time, including email, was all done in English. And so what I did was I continued using English as the language as we communicated back and forth via email. And then as I got there, we switched over to the Spanish language because we had people on the ground, on site, the church people, the school people, the staff, people like that were only Spanish speakers. And so we wanted to make sure that we included all conversations and dialogue where everybody could understand. So we converted right away to all Spanish. This is a picture of the school. The school itself has and includes everything for every person from preschool, young people. I saw the youngest one was probably about 3 years old, all the way up to high school. And the 700 students all come in there. They have a preschool where they have daycare. It goes into the grammar schools, into the junior high schools, and then into the high schools. This school was designed and developed to assist the underprivileged people of that community. In other words, this is not a public school. It was actually developed for those people that could not afford to go to a public school, and to better their future by giving them more education, more technical training, advanced training in health, nutrition, and education, basically. And so these students here, as you can see, very well controlled. They're very appreciative of what is being given to them by the school itself. The two ladies, the directors of them, again, bring that money in from Switzerland. I don't think they're wealthy people, but they put just about everything they earn into the school to making sure that this community has what it needs to have success with the younger people. So my hat's off to them. They've done an outstanding job. This is the picture that we have exiting it, and as you can see up above, the name of the school is Santa Maria del Fiat. Now, I haven't done any translation of that, and I didn't know which way to go with the Fiat part of it, whether it was going to be Italian or it was going to be Swiss, so I kind of left it at that. The area itself is Manglar Alto. Manglar Alto is along a coast. It is a coastline village or community, very small community. It's a beautiful area, by the way. There's a surfing spot right down the street. It's called Montanita, and it's a beautiful area. It's supposedly a world destination spot for surfers. I went to the village itself there, and it definitely looked like a laid out area straight out of Hawaii. So they must have a lot of surfing going on there. This is a coastline picture of that same area I was telling you about. And again, I wanted to show you the pictures because in the areas that I travel to and visit, we could talk about it, but unless you've got a picture and are able to visualize what the coastline looks like, what the areas that I'm working in looks like, you don't really get a feel of the people and the way they live. Pictures and geographical images actually show how the people have adopted in and adapted into these different areas. One of the pictures I have, because I don't have a lot of dwelling pictures, is a picture of this dwelling. This was taken along the roadway going into Manglor Alto. And as you can see, most of them are built up on stilts. This is one of the houses that's along the coastal front. And because of that, the coastal region, they are prone to flooding both directions, coming in at the high tides and water going out from the rains because we're at the equator. And because of that, the houses are built on stilts. You can see the quality of the homes. They're fairly rustic, and as you can also see, there's no shortage of electricity there. They got plenty of electricity. This picture shows a pond, and I was asking my Rotarian buddies, who are my guides, I go, what are all these ponds doing along the roadway? I mean, there are miles and miles of these ponds. I found out later that that is actually salt water piped in from the ocean, and that each of these little mini reservoirs are shrimp farms. And so they're raising shrimp in these little enclosed areas. They were devastated, I think, about 3-4 years ago, they said, with a disease that went through and wiped out a lot of the farms. But now they have that controlled, balanced back out again, and they're back into action. So a lot of the shrimping is done in this specific area. And again, a beautiful area. It's done on the low-lying areas along the coastline. This picture here actually is a picture of a salt plant. So sea salt is actually converted into salt here. And I took a picture of this one too because this is, again, one of the ways that they are making money. It's a very industrial area. If you look at Guayaquil on the maps and in Googling it, you will find out that it is probably one of the most industrial, if not the most industrial city of all of South America for all that they do and everything that goes on there. So that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of industry along the coastal areas. Next picture is a picture that I took of the clubhouse. Now, we in the United States, very seldom do we own our own clubhouse, but this club, La Puntilla, actually owns not only their own clubhouse, they own a whole city block. And the building that you see behind them, right there in front, was their clubhouse. They have office buildings, they have above, they have storefronts that they rent out to, but the building itself is actually for Rotarians. They have 2 full-time staff people there. I see this in Korea. Didn't think I'd ever see it in Ecuador, but they did. And they have a beautiful salon area for meetings and all of the above. So we actually met there in this place because he wanted to show me their clubhouse. This is a picture now of the Rotarians in their clubhouse. And we sat down, again, if you notice, there's food available for us. So I never went hungry down in Ecuador. But we actually are talking about the project itself, the success that this project has had, futures, what is going to be done next, because the school is being supported a lot by the Rotarians of this specific club. And I did point out the fact that it was very unique that I would see a septic system installed before drinking water was addressed. And believe it or not, that school has no drinking water. That water that's coming in there is contaminated. They are right now at a point and position where they have to bring in drinking water. So they purchase all the drinking water. So I asked them what would be the future potential of actually doing both, continue the loop, closing the loop where they would have drinking water and also a septic system. They said it's probably going to happen because I brought it up within the next year. So they are now going to be looking at putting in a filtrated water system so they would have filtrated drinking water at the school. I thought that's a great idea. The other thing unique about the club itself is that if you noticed in the picture prior, all men, South America and a lot of the international countries do not yet allow women into their clubs. And so this was one of those non-exceptions. This one had men only in their club. They had 31 people. It was a large club. I'm sorry, 21 people, very large club. Now, you're thinking about how much I had to rough it down there, and I was actually in Ecuador for 3 days. Temperature, average day temperature is about 84, 85 degrees, but the picture that you see is the hotel alley that I was actually staying on. So beautiful area. I enjoyed the area itself. I made my reservations through the Rotarians who put me up at this beautiful place. And so I actually enjoyed myself quite a bit, even though I was there only for a few hours a day. Again, very tourist area. The city itself is built on a river, and that river actually flows straight out to the ocean. And there are actually some boats actually coming up because it's such a deep river that it connects in, takes about, I think it's about 20, 30 miles to the ocean itself. And so there's a bay right there, and Enterprise then comes up that river and shares into the area of Guayaquil. Next picture again is another picture taken from my hotel area there, and again, beautiful, beautiful area, beautiful buildings, all of the above that you see. And again, one of the few nights that I had off, I had one full night where I actually got to walk around, see what it looked like. Very safe, secured area. They told me that it's safe and fine to walk there, just stay in the touristy areas. There is a little bit of issue with some of the refugees coming out of some of the, I would say, more turbulent countries in South America. So that's why you have to be somewhat careful, but not too bad. The next picture is a picture of one of the parks. I walked downtown. This is called the Parks of the Iguana. It's right dead center in town. And I go, well, why would they call it the Park of the Iguanas? Well, that was soon answered when I started walking around and I saw this big giant iguana standing right next to me. Evidently, these iguanas know better. They stay in the park, which is one city block, climb up in the trees, live up in the trees, and actually spend a lot of their time coming down for food. They get handouts from a lot of the park people and those people that are helping them out, I would say. Lettuce is their primary meal, what they do most of the day, and they're very tame, very friendly. But I wouldn't want to get too close to one of them. They're pretty good size. So that is the Park of the Iguanas in Guayaquil. By the way, if you ever get a chance to visit the city itself, it is a beautiful city. Reminded me a lot of New Orleans because it's on a riverfront, river edge. There's a lot of beautiful areas there for tourism, for walking along the riverfront, and also a lot of stores, shops, and it's a very safe and secure area. This picture here is, I believe, my last picture. This picture here shows one of the areas where I actually had a lunch. I was treated by Octavio and his wife to a lunch. This building itself was built in the 1900s, and it was refurbished, restored, brought back into use. And one of the things that was unique about it is that it also included a hotel. And the hotel itself, again, was a throwback right out of New Orleans. So I was very surprised about that one. As you can see, it's a very tropical area. Again, I am right literally on the equator. I was surprised that we didn't get a lot of rain there, though. And they said that they were having a fairly extreme drought at this point in time. And they were having problems with some of the plant life and some of the wildlife actually being low on water, lacking water. So that was, again, one of the unique and fascinating areas of Ecuador. Now, what I wanted to do with the last amount of time that I have is to talk about why Rotary is so important and why we as Rotarians travel around the world. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of people worldwide and see firsthand all of the benefits that happens around this world. And I wanted to share with you through slides, through images that I was able to capture on these trips, to show you why it's important that we continue to support the Rotary Foundation, because we will see, unfortunately most of you won't, but we will see the benefits of a changing world through Rotary and through the efforts that you do by contributing to that Rotary Foundation. We were able to work with this group, and by the way, the Rotarians in Ecuador in the city, in the club of La Puntilla, were actually very affluent, and they do a lot of projects there, including grants that are done by cash only. And by doing cash only grants, they were able to support out large groups of people around that Ecuador area. And because of that, from what I've seen, one club has done huge impacts in that community, that specific area. It was unique that one of the clubs that they did partner with were the clubs that came in from San Francisco, because I do work with them. And I bring this point up because even though San Francisco and the Rotarians in San Francisco and the Rotarians from Southern California work together in cooperation with a lot of these projects, it is very rare that we actually compare notes to find out what we are doing around the world. And so when I did see this project and see that it was being done by Rotarians from San Francisco, I was somewhat surprised, because I actually had not heard about the project before. And the overall answer that I gave to the foundation as far as sustainability was the fact that this project would be highly sustainable. It's going to go for another 20, 30 years and beyond. It may be that there's going to be mechanical issues that come down the road. There may be some other issues that requirement for rebuilding, maybe adding another separate system or secondary system. But one of the points of it being sustainable is the fact that now a community understands the need to have treatment plants, water treatment plants, sewer treatment plants, to make sure that their groundwater and their environment remains non-contaminated. And I think that is the number one source or number one point of sustainability for this project. I also was able to talk to them about the water project, the drinking water project, with their understanding that they were purchasing water. By completing the cycle, closing that cycle, and having drinking water and having a septic system then circulating out to where the water is non-contaminating to the environment itself, I think is one of the key points, because this again continues the loop and closes the loop for education. Education of a community that probably for decades, for generations, had never considered the fact that they were drinking or had issues with contaminated water. And again, sustainability component becomes one of those key issues. Rotary has done an outstanding job with all of these projects. I would say that for me, the benefit of traveling around the world is that I get to see firsthand what happens with the Rotary Foundation. But secondly, even more importantly, is the fact that I am able to make friends around the world, create a network, because as needs arise in the city of Guayaquil, I will be contacted for assistance to help them out. Again, and also if there's another area, someplace in South America that would need help, I know for a fact that the Rotary Club of La Puntilla has the resources, has the energy, has the knowledge to do outstanding projects. And because of that fact, Rotary itself is one outstanding organization. The points that I want to make is that this one trip, as I mentioned, was a 3-day trip. I went to South America for a total of 9 days, and you'll find out in this next series, the next show that I will be doing will be for the second leg of this trip. And what was interesting is that the trips were substantially different. I started in Ecuador, which was the plan, where it was 85 degrees, nighttime temperature is about 75, 78 degrees on a daily basis. My next stop was in southern Chile. When I landed there, the temperature was 23 degrees with a high of 42. So the challenge was to pack, make sure I had the right type of clothes to have and wear, because in Ecuador, I needed summer clothes, and as I got down to the southern part of Chile, it was completely different. With that, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the tour, and with that, we will see you next time.